One of the things that drive me crazy when I develop software has to be me not finishing projects. And I think it's the same for everyone who develops software. Getting 50% done, maybe even more, and then having to realize that what you've done is nowhere near the end goal. It's insane. It sucks. And I realized that. Here are some underlying reasons as to why your programming projects might be failing often. So starting off, we have a lack of planning. A lack of planning is the thing that gets your project moving off the ground. It's the thing that you can't miss, but often it goes over your head when you're starting these projects. Now, when it comes to the projects that I've made, I generally have had no success with planning these projects ahead of the time. Most of the time, my projects often don't meet up with expectations. Now, the most important thing to manage when you're planning your project out is time. Time is your asset. Time is the one thing that you can control, that you have control over. Time is the thing that can mess you up. Time is the thing that can make you succeed. Time is your tool. It is a part of the tool belt that is very beneficial. Now, there are two kinds of time management when it comes to these programming projects. One is short-term time management, as in your smaller projects, something like making a calculator in JavaScript. So the short-term time management is what you do for smaller projects. Seems a little more simple than it actually is, because once you actually start to think about time management with smaller projects, things can go overboard. With short-term time management, you really want to not plan ahead. Planning ahead is what makes you not want to finish the project in the first place, because it makes you overthink. When you overthink, stuff doesn't get done. Now, the other source of time management is long-term time management. It's the exact opposite of short-term time management. With long-term time management, this is for the bigger projects like creating your own separate website, for example, and something on the scale of building a website might take you a couple of months. So with something like this, you need to plan ahead, because if you don't, you're not going to get the structure of your project, and it can't lift off the ground further because you messed up in the beginning. So to sum these two versions of time management up, usually with short-term time management, you just want to plan about a day in advance of what you're going to be doing with the shorter, because you'll overthink otherwise. And with long-term time management, you want to plan about 2 weeks in advance. So you don't think that much, but you also have structure. Structure is a lot more important in bigger projects, because structure is what keeps your project going, especially in a larger project. And with smaller projects, you don't necessarily need as much structure in them, because they're just short term. They're about things you could push off a month from now and then not really care. Now, the final thing I have to say about making sure to plan is making sure other people see your larger projects, and if you can, or if you really care about a smaller project, let that person that you're showing give their opinion on it, whether it's finished or not. Now, if you have an outside opinion, you'll have more direction in your unfinished projects. Now, the most damaging thing I see when people do projects, and as to why you fail, is overestimating what you can do, your ability. Now, these projects are supposed to allow you to learn more and expand your ability to code. Now, when it comes to any of these projects that you're working on, you can't overestimate your skill, because if you do, you're just not going to get it finished, and it's not going to live up to your expectations. And even if it does, you're probably not going to want to deliver it. You're not going to want to put it on like a repository or anything on GitHub or any other kind of repository, because of how embarrassing it is. And I see this a lot with beginner programmers, myself included, especially with how they go about being confident. And really, this goes with any kind of skill, really. Being so cocky and believing that you can do so much more, but really you can't. And when this happens, your project just fails. It's important to realize your limits. Now, think of your experience and compare it to the other people out there on their repositories, and you might be able to get more of an idea as to what you want to do with your projects. And this really leads to success because you really need reference. If you are completely lost, it is always important to check out other projects and compare yours to theirs. If it doesn't seem like it's going in the right direction, maybe take some inspiration from that person that you're looking at. And if it all turns out that you just don't feel like your heart's in the project and that you feel like you really can't do it, then that's probably the point where you realize that you're just wasting your time and that you should quit. Now, it all comes down to, like I said earlier, time management. And if it really comes down to you just spending way too much time on this project, it's definitely not worth it. Now, when you compare yourself to others, just realize that you're not alone in not finishing your projects. It happens to the best of us. And really, when it comes down to it, if you don't finish a project, it's not the end of the world. It all just comes down to how much you've learned. Just know that you're not alone. Now, another thing that I've noticed is that people just work on these projects and they just don't have a purpose. They don't really have a purpose for doing the project. Like, it's not fulfilling any of their goals. It's not helping them learn. They're just doing it for fun, which I guess in essence that's correct. That's fine. You know, it's you do learn syntax a little bit better and you do get more experience. But in the end, if you don't have a purpose for a project, what's the point in even doing it? If it's not going to serve either your needs or somebody else's needs, there's really no point in doing it. If you're not really, you are benefiting by experience slightly, but if you're not even learning from those experiences, there's really no point. And that also comes back to realizing when you should quit. It's also extremely important to remember that these projects go towards your portfolio. If you really want to, put them on a repository. If you really want to, you can also, once you put them on the repository, add comments and stuff to show what you know what you're doing and not just copying code from other people. And when it comes down to it, these projects show your ability to code. It shows how well you can do it, how long it takes you to code, especially with those dates on the repositories. Update them frequently to show that you actually care. If you want to build up a portfolio and have a future in software development and getting a job in that field, just keep your projects simple at first and build on the projects. When it comes to making sure projects don't fail, you really just want to build on. Finish your projects 100%, because if you don't, it's just going to look terrible and you're never going to want to finish a project if you don't commit to 100% and get it done. I know from experience, especially website building, it's just completing a website 100% gives you that sense of accomplishment and it gives you a feeling of wanting to do more. So if you don't finish a project, it's going to discourage you from doing other projects, and it's just like one giant paradox of not wanting to finish. So overall, if you enjoyed the video, if you found that it helped you out a little bit and it give you a little more confidence in your ability to code, just leave a like, subscribe if you like this content. I hope I was able to help you. And with that, adios.